Welcome to my Full Life and Faith Leaps podcast with me, Tiffany Jo Baker, where we help you experience God's power and rest in your purpose and progress as you move forward step by step in all the things God has called and created you to do at home and around the world. Hello, y'all, and welcome back to my Full Life and Faith Leaps podcast with me, Tiffany Jo Baker. Today, I'm really excited because I have a new friend, but a very like-minded friend who hails from my old stomping grounds, Ohio. And today I have with me Rachel G. Scott. Rachel, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Tiffany, for having me. So excited to be here.
I think we could have many, many conversations. You are a podcast host as well. Your podcast is Taking the Leap podcast with Rachel G. Scott. You have a book coming out called Taking the 5 Leaps. A fellow mom, wife, author, speaker. And so your heart, it sounds like, and the way God has used you is similar, but I know we're all unique in that fact. But on taking leaps of faith and taking leaps and going for it. And this podcast is called My Full Life and Faith Leaps podcast. And so would you just kind of share, how did God kind of lead you into this space? Was there a moment when you took a leap of faith and had this aha moment, or what really brought you into this space?
That's such a great question. I think about early on when I was on this just journey of, I don't want to call it just content creation, but, kingdom creation, kingdom content creation. And I have a ministry called I Can't Come Down. And the whole point in that was, okay, let's walk in our purpose and assignment with focus. Let's move, let's go. And I was getting people motivated and excited. But I realized that I'm telling people you can't come down from the purpose and the assignment God has given you, but a lot of people weren't moving in that. And so I just had this moment where I prayed and I'm like, Lord, what is it? Why are people not moving? I'm saying, don't come down. Hey, you're on the wall. They're like, I'm not on the wall yet. I haven't gone up yet. And it was because they were afraid to take that leap. And so I had a client that I was mentoring, and she was a nurse. And she's like, Rachel, I feel called to really go into this writing, but I don't know if I can walk away from everything that I'm doing. I feel like I'm bringing so much into my household. I'm afraid to walk away from it all. And I just felt compelled to ask God, like, Lord, is that the only way that a person can take a leap of faith, is step into what you've called them to do? And from that, I just felt he revealed these 5 different leaps that people can take, just biblical leaps that people take throughout their life. So it became the answer to a question, but it also solved another problem that I was finding of people just not wanting to move forward, which, Tiffany, you completely understand that.
Yes. Oh, I love so many things about that journey that you just described. And one of them is how you kept asking the Lord, how you kept going to God and saying, okay, here's where we are. Here, what is it? And I think so many times, and just in the last podcast I had, we miss that step of just asking Jesus. Yes. Like, we make things so much harder of like, okay, I need a coach, I need a strategy, I need this plan, I need this checklist.
Yep.
And sometimes, and a lot of times, it's as simple as asking Jesus. And we can know the journey. We can know the next step of the journey. He can even give us the Z of the journey, the end of it. If we would just ask him, we would save a lot of us so much time and heartache. And what I say, and what God has revealed to me, so many of us want to do things for God, but he wants us to do things with him.
Yes.
And you just described that so beautifully in your journey of how it was a with God journey of the revelation and of what's behind the stuck that so many people are experiencing.
Yes.
So,
and can I say something to that real quick?
Yeah, please. Please.
It's funny because I feel like you read my book already. You talked about the for and with, and I mentioned that in the book. But here's another thing that I do when it comes to just inviting God into the process. And I do this all the time. And I've done this. That's actually the question that I asked God for this. I said, Lord, show me someone in the Bible who ... So that is the way that I feel God responds to me, is just that very tangible, practical way. Show me someone in the Bible who went through this. Show me someone in the Bible who was afraid of this. And it just amazes me how he will answer, right? Ask, seek, knock, and that's exactly what he does. So that's just another way to ask that question.
So good. Okay, we are sisters because I'm in the process of writing a book, and every morning I wake up, and as I'm having my God time and my writing time, and I say, show me the woman who
Yes.
and my book is going to be about carrying, what we're carrying. Show me the woman who's carrying.
Wow.
Yes.
Yes.
And he will give me a name, and I'm like, I read the Bible, but it's so God sent.
It is so, yes.
It's so God sent. So, oh my goodness. Okay. So we could talk all day. We could all talk all day. But in our journeys of faith leaps, there's usually two things that we need to overcome. And one is something that's holding us back. And the other thing is getting what we need to help us move forward. And a lot of the times it's some fear that's holding us back, but we also need courage to move forward. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about those two things, about fear that keeps us stuck and the courage that we need to move forward?
Yeah. So I've heard it said that fear is false evidence appearing real. And I do believe that there is truth to that. But then I also believe that it can be rooted in something that we've experienced, that we have placed within our mind as, when I see a similar situation, this is the same as that. And to me, in order for us to lean more into courage, we have to discern a little bit better. We have to ask God, this is a situation that I'm afraid of. I think about all the possibilities. I say the enemy works in three ways: speculation, imagination, and negative thoughts. So when we acknowledge fear, we also need to acknowledge what is bringing that fear about. Is this a speculation? Am I just speculating that if I make this move, this will happen? That's a speculation. Am I imagining that this person is going to say that? Or am I just allowing negative thoughts like, well, if I do this and did it? And that is usually where the fear begins, because it is planted by a speculation, an imagination, or a negative thought. So how do we counteract that? We move beyond that with the courage and the knowledge of God's faithfulness, who God is. So what is the truth about the situation? What has he said about this situation? And then I lean into that knowledge, not my own understanding, not what I believe could happen, but what has God spoken about it. He's the only one that can see the future. We have to remind ourselves of that, because we can come up with all of these future scenarios, but he's the only one that can see it. And what he has for us is good. And when I really believe in the goodness of God, I can move and lean forward in courage that he is going to walk with me. I'm not doing this on my own. He's going to be there with me and carry me through and walk alongside me.
So good. Again, you started with the asking the Lord, what is this fear? Where is this coming from? And you mentioned the three potentials of where a lot of the fear comes from, and then leaning into who God is and knowing he is with you. Yeah. I think that is just so powerful, because when we feel like we're showing up by ourselves, we have nothing to stand on. Yeah. But when, as speakers, sometimes they teach this method of the superhero pose, where before you go on stage, sometimes they'll say, stand with your hands on your hips and pretend you're a superhero before you go out to speak. So you're like putting yourself in this other headspace. Right. Well, if we as Christians would truly get the revelation of it is God with us. Emmanuel, God with us, that he is with us, and that we can take that Holy Spirit pose and position of him being with us in the hills and the valleys, in the steps, in the leaps, in the runs, in the hard times, and in the times of celebration, that we're not alone no matter what. Yes. And that when he is with us, Holy Spirit is with us, his strength that's made perfect in our weakness, we can stand in that position of confidence, that we can move forward knowing, for richer or poor, in better or worse, he is with us and we're not alone. Yes. That's so good. It's so like it's encouraging me. Like, I'm preaching to myself right now. I'm preaching to myself.
You're preaching to me too. So
well, when we talk about courage, is there something, so you talked about leaning in and knowing who God is there any kind of practical or any kind of thing that you could share that could help people to
Yeah.
lean into that and to know who God is better?
Yeah. I think anytime we're going through a transition, we need courage. So even for me, there's been job shifts that I've had to go through. And the question is, God, how? Like, how are you going to do this? This is not making sense. Like, how's this going to work out? And having to really understand that the God that I serve, he owns everything. And he will give to me as I trust him. Like he's going to give to me to the level of my faith. And that's just the reality. If I believe him for this, then he will match that and beyond. So there have been, I think specifically about my son. I always say that my son is the child that has really led me to have more courage, because he had different medical things going on just since he was born, and he's thank you Lord is healing through a lot of those things. But there were moments where it was out of my control. There was nothing I could do. I couldn't make him feel better. I couldn't resolve the situation. There was nothing I could do. I was sitting there, and I had to have the courage that he needed in order for him to be able to press through. So I can't release what I don't first carry, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And I've had things in my life. I've gone through like custody battles and, sicknesses and things with my home. But I realized that what God was preparing me and building in me was courage, because I had to have that in order to release it to someone else who is needing to take that leap, or who is going through something. So courage in essence is something we want to just automatically have it, like, I'm courageous, woohoo. But courage comes through situations where we choose to invite courage in exchange for what the enemy wants to give us, right?
Yes.
Courage is what we want in that moment. Let's make it's the exchange. It's the divine exchange. Fear, nope, I'm going to exchange it for courage. And it's a conscious effort that we have to make.
Yep. And I love the word you used. You were building your courage.
Yeah.
And as we're walking with the Lord, it starts like our faith leaps can start small, or the obedience, listening and obeying can start small. But we start to realize the outcome of that, it builds our faith. It builds our courage for the next leap, for the next thing that's coming. And again, it's that process and that journey, but with him, with us in the process of it. And it's that building, like you said, we all want to arrive. We all want to be there and be done and on the mountain and just hanging out, or by the pool, just hanging out, wherever that mountaintop experience is for us. But it's a process and it's a journey, but it's an adventure.
It is.
It's an adventure with the Lord. And I was a prodigal child, a prodigal teenager, and I thought I wanted the adventure that life had to offer. But that adventure came with so much shame and guilt and torment. But when I realized the adventure of faith and faith leaps and walking with the Lord, but by the grace of God, will never go back, because the adventure with him is full of joy and peace, even in the midst of the storm.
Even in the midst of it. Yes, absolutely. I 100% agree.
Well, I know we could talk so much more about courage and faith leaps. And you've got a book mentioned. It's coming out in March of 2024, Taking the 5 Leaps. So I'll make sure to put the information in the show notes. But is there a verse or something that you hold on to when you're talking about faith leaps?
Yeah. So 2 Thessalonians 1:11, and it's Paul talking, and he says essentially that I pray that God would empower you to do all the things that your faith prompts you to do. And it's that reminder that it is with Christ. He's gonna call me to do things. I'm gonna feel prompted to do things by faith, but that he's gonna do that with me. So that is the verse that I I love, it constantly reminds me of what it looks like to live a leaping lifestyle, because I say that's what we live. We live a
Yes.
leaping lifestyle. God is always calling us from one thing to the next. And so just having our mindset, knowing that with God, he's going to prompt us to do things, but he's going to be there with us.
Amazing. And where can people find you online to find out more about the 5 different types of leaps and living a lifestyle of leaps? Where can they find you?
Yeah, just go to rachelgscott.com, or on most of the social handles. I am Rachel G. Scott.
Wonderful. Oh my goodness. Well, this was so fun. I'm so excited. I know this will probably be a beginning of a friendship online and maybe in person one day. But thank you so much for coming and just sharing a little bit about your journey.
Thank you, Tiffany, for having me.
All right, y'all. Thank you for joining us. And we just pray that as God leads you step by step, leap by leap, run by run, that you would know that he is Emmanuel, God with you, and that he has all that you need for life and for godliness. And so until next time, I'm Tiffany Jo Baker with my Full Life and Faith Leaps podcast, and be blessed, y'all. Well, friends, thank you for joining us today on my Full Life and Faith Leaps podcast. If you enjoyed our time together and are taking away a nugget that has inspired your soul and success, would you share this episode with a loved one who could use it too? And if you haven't already, take a moment to rate and review this podcast and help me help others fuel and fulfill their faith journeys. Until next time, I'm Tiffany Jo Baker, a 3-time surrogate, speaker, and strategizer who loves to help you birth your God-given dreams at home and around the world. Now go do all the things God has called and created you to do with the grace and gifts God has given you.